സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നേ.
We can start, Jamila.
Good evening to everyone who has joined us on this platform. All India Women's Conference is hosting this once again on a topic that is very close to all of us, the G20 countries. We started the series about 9 months back, and this is our 9th session of the series on the G20 countries. We have had talks on Canada, Australia, Germany, Turkey, China, Japan, Greece, UK, and now it is our own country, India. Actually, I had kept India for the beginning of this year, 2024, because I thought that this was a good beginning to talk about India, which is the land of diversity of so many different geographical regions, so many different political parties, so many different states having its own language. So perhaps you could not find a country more complex than India. And to start the new year with India is, in fact, a kind of feather on our cap, I should say, thanks to Usha, who has been hosting this platform, the online platform, for the last 3 years. And to remind all viewers, I would like to take you back to the December of 2020, when COVID was very rampant in the country and all over the world. We decided to start an online platform, would be a kind of intellectual participation and intellectual exchange among its members. And that is how in December 2020, we started the program with Jayakumar sir to inaugurate the session. And after that, we have had a series of talks on different topics. And it was when the G20 countries India hosted the G20 countries, we decided, let us start something that would really look at these countries that have come together. So here is our 9th session of this talk, and the talk is titled From Raj to Republic, India's Cultural Tapestry and Evolving Literary Landscape. We have as our speaker today Dr. Chitra V.R., who's an associate professor from the Department of English, University College, Trivandrum. She is a very enterprising and very popular teacher in the colleges, and a speaker whom a lot of our students listen to and appreciate and talk about. I must say Chitra is a go-getter. I remember seeing her as a PhD student at the Institute of English, very quietly going about her work, but with a lot of determination and with, I would say, a willpower to get what she wanted and to get it the best way. And that is why perhaps she has a very good academic record of a rank holder for her BA. She did her MA not only in literature, but also in sociology, went on to do her PhD. And her teaching experience spans not just the colleges, but the schools as well. So she has given a lot of input for the preparation of the textbooks of the SERT, the Educational Research team at Trivandrum. She has also been instrumental in compiling new programs and new courses for our PG courses and undergraduate courses under the new UGC plan of education. Her area of research, very interestingly, is Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Salman Rushdie. And that is why when I was looking around for speakers on India, I immediately thought about Chitra, and I thought, no, I couldn't have got a better speaker than Chitra to talk about India. And Chitra is going to talk to us not just today, but she is going to continue the series of the second part of India next month first Saturday, and it will be looking at from India from the Republic to the present times. Maybe she'll have a catchy title for that as well when we meet again in February. Chitra has also published and edited many books like Text Context, published by Creative Books. She is a co-editor of a special number of Australian Bushfires of Litcrit, which is a very popular journal among English teachers. She is coordinating the book on Australian bushfires, Australian culture, economy, and polity. She has also created content for UG and PG courses and has done a minor research project as part of the grant received from the University Grants Commission on the study of the bestial imagery in Salman Rushdie's selected works titled Stepping Across the Line, Bestial Imagery in Salman Rushdie's Novels. So here is a speaker who has really looked at India, the complexity of India. And we all know that India is emerging as one of the most populated countries in the world, with 1.43 billion, overtaking China in 2023. And we also know that India is often thought about as a knowledge society. And the best commodity that India has to offer the rest of the world is this knowledge of our youngsters. And with so many young students and young adults in India, I'm sure that very soon India will become also one of the first economically developed countries in the world. Not only developed, I think it will be the first in terms of its economy. The online platform that we have had for the last 3 years has really opened up for the viewers and for, I think, AIWC members as well, the rich tapestry of not just one country, but as I said, of 8 other countries. And today we are going to look at the geographical diversity, the oceans around us, the mountains that border us, the rivers that flow through India, the rich culture, the Indus Valley civilization, the various castes, creeds that make up India, the languages that are spoken not only as popular languages by the different states, but languages of the different tribes, the people who are not so well known to us. And very fascinatingly, we find that particularly in literature, the literature of the tribes has come to the center stage. And in India, much attention is now being given to the language and the literature of the tribals. And it's a totally different culture and a totally different interests that you find among the tribes, the music of the tribes. So when we talked about the other countries, I think we talked about different representations of people, multiculturalism. We talked about the way the land was laid out. But when you look at India, and I think we are all proud to be Indians, we have a country that is beyond description and beyond words. And no amount of, even in these 2 parts, I'm sure Chitra will not be able to cover the richness and the diversity of India as the country that stands foremost in the world. So with these words of introduction and a very warm welcome to all the members who have joined us on this platform and all those who will be watching us on YouTube much later, a very, very warm welcome to everyone. I would also like to lay on record my appreciation of this program at Indra Aunty, who has been behind all this, Anusha, who has kept this going, and Bhuneshwari, who has always been there, and Kamini, and our GP, who is with us today, Professor Dr. GP G. Varghese, who is the secretary of the AIWC branch at Trivandrum, and all the others who have joined us from outside the state. I can see Asha Deshpante, Ida Balasubramaniam, Chandraprabha Pante, Shanti, Socrates. So a very, very warm welcome to all of you who have joined us from other parts of India. So over to you, Chitra, with a very, very warm welcome. Chitra.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the generous introduction. And I am deeply honored and humbled, I must say, to be invited to this forum to speak on a very important topic that is India as a G20 nation. And this, as you said earlier, this series has been going on for long. And I must actually thank Usha ma'am also and the AIWC Forum Trivandrum, Munishri ma'am and GB ma'am for inviting me, for giving me a space to speak something about or to express my perspectives and views about India as a G20 nation. So thank you so much and good afternoon to one and all. I mean, good evening to one and all. So shall I move on to my presentation, ma'am?
Yeah, please.
Is it coming? Is it coming, ma'am?
Yes.
It's fine, it's fine. Go on.
Yeah. Okay, good evening to all of you. And my presentation is titled From Raj to Republic, India's Cultural Tapestry and the Evolving Literary Landscape. And what I mean by this title is that I was trying to look at India's cultural tradition, cultural diversity, historical experiences, and different kinds of traditions as reflected in the literary landscape of India. And I was tracing the evolution of India in this manner, not only from Raj, but slightly beyond Raj, as Jamila ma'am said, right from Indus Valley civilization to the Republic and up to the G20 presidency as it is now. But however, since it is a very vast topic, I couldn't actually structure it within the frames of 20 or 25 slides. So I thought I would divide the presentation into two and will devote my first presentation to the evolution of India from Raj to the independence. I mean, to independence of India and partition. And thereafter, in the second presentation, I'll be looking at the post-independent India up to the G20 presidency. So this is the manner in which I'm trying to structure my presentation. And when you look at India as a G20 nation, I think I needn't give an introduction about G20 countries because as we are, all of us know that G20 is an intergovernmental forum of 19 sovereign countries, including the European Union, which has been formed to discuss issues related to global economy, climate change mitigation, and sustainable development. And G20, but for India, G20 is much more than an economic platform, and it is a crucible where where the future of the global governance is being shaped. That is what is for India. And India's ascent to its presidency way back in September 2023, as we all know, is emblematic. That it is something which is symbolic of its growth or of its rapidly evolving role on the world stage. And India has taken over the 20 presidency from Indonesia on the occasion of the country completing 75 years of its independence and becoming the fifth largest economy in the world. So it's naturally its role as a G20 nation is multifaceted and crucial, offering it a platform to advocate for its own interests while contributing to global solutions on pressing issues. Now, when you look at India's journey to the G20 presidency, it is something which is meant for history books, we feel. But when you look at the picture of India, India is a land or is a country which has got a trajectory from the spice routes to satellites. So what does that mean to the world? So it means a lot for us, but what does that mean to the world? So let us have a look at that. What is the significance of India within the G20 nations? And what does it mean actually to be India in G20? So definitely, if you look at India from the present or current position, it is an economic powerhouse. India's rapid economic growth, rising market share, and larger consumer base make it a key player in shaping the global economic landscape. And within the G20 also, India actively participates in discussions on sustainable growth, trade liberalization, and financial inclusion, aiming to bridge the gap between developed and developing economies. India is the world's fifth largest economy by nominal GDP and the third largest by purchasing power parity, with a projected growth of 7% in 2023-24. So all this allows India to advocate for developing nations and push for reforms that benefit its own burgeoning economy. And when you look at India, that is India has got. I told you it is that is its position, or it's attaining the presidency of G20 is quite emblematic, because it can use its ancient wisdom along with its cutting edge technology to offer alternate models for global progress. Then, as far as championing development is concerned, India draws upon its own experiences with poverty alleviation and infrastructure development to champion these causes on the G20 stage. It advocates for inclusion development, focusing on issues like access to education, healthcare, and sanitation for all, particularly in the global south, where global north is considering global south as a garbage bin. And India's 920 presidency in 2023 focuses on the theme One Earth, One Family, One Future. That is a Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, highlighting its commitment to sustainable development. And coming to the crucial issue that we face these days, climate change and sustainability. One of the most populous countries, as Yamila ma'am said earlier, that is having billions and billions of population, standing next to China and almost, overpowering China in this. It is vulnerable to climate change. India actively pushes for global action on reducing carbon emissions and mitigating climate risk. Its participation in G20 discussions on renewable energy, climate finance, and adaptation strategies helps shape the global response to this critical challenge. As far as technological innovation is concerned, India's vibrant technology sector and growing digital economy give it a unique perspective on the role of technology in development and governance. Within the G20, India highlights the benefits of digitalization for improving public services, financial inclusion, and education, while also addressing concerns about cybersecurity and data privacy. India has become a geopolitical force because of its strategic location and growing international influence, which gives it a strong voice in G20 discussions on geopolitical issues like counterterrorism, cybersecurity, and global health crisis. It advocates for peaceful resolution of conflicts, regional cooperation, and a multipolar world order. And inclusivity is actually the most important priority for India, because balancing its own national interests with the needs of the global community requires skillful diplomacy and strategic negotiation. Its voice carries weight on issues of global concern, offering a unique perspective shaped by its rapid economic growth, development challenges, and commitment to a sustainable and equitable future for all. But if you look at India, that is, how has it reached the G20 presidency? It is very interesting because it is a picture which is from a country which was absolutely reliant to a country which is capable of influencing others as it is now. So here, how has it grown from such a country of resilience to the country of influence? Let us see. Because in the initial phase, before the pre-independence period, we can see that India was absolutely absent from the world stage. It was a British colony without independent voice or representation in international forums, that is especially the League of Nations, which is the G20 predecessor. Then it was actually spending his time for tackling internal struggles. The fight for independence consumed political and economic energies, leaving little room for global engagement. The struggle for independence led to economic planning focused on self-sufficiency and industrialization, and the focus was on national development. As a colony, it also lacked independent economic leverage, and his voice within the global arena was minimal. Colonial exploitation stunted economic growth, leaving India with a weak resource base and with minimal participation in international trade. Then, of course, we saw it was a land which was oppressed under the colonial rule. And despite all these limitations, India's rich intellectual capital and growing economic potential laid the foundation for the future global engagement. Of course, we saw it was an age of cultural resistance, especially the Raj era, saw a cultural awakening with literature and art playing a pivotal role in resisting colonial influence. Writers like Rabindranath Tagore and Premchand used their works to highlight social injustices and promote national identity. But when you come to the post-independence period, we can see that India slowly rose to prominence. Independent India actively sought global engagement, joining the United Nations and later becoming the founding member of G20 in 1999. And independent India embarked on a path of economic liberalization and rapid growth, gradually gaining stature within the G20. As a voice of the global south, for the global south, India advocated for fair trade, debt relief, and access to development resources, bridging the digital divide and advocating for global health equity for developing nations. And and it also attained success in areas like digital transformation and healthcare, which can serve as a model for other developing countries as well. Then priorities were naturally shifting for India. India's focus within the G20 has expanded to include areas like climate change, digital transformation, and global health equity. So the key differences we find is that India transformed slowly from a non-entity to a key player in international economic and political discourse when it attained G20 presidency and when it was displaying its cultural diplomacy. So it was a paradigm shift, a shift from reliance to influence, a shift from being a resource-dependent colony to a growing economic power, giving India greater leverage and influence within the G20. And if you look at the social fabric of India, let me begin with a quote by Shashi Tharoor from his work Bookless in Baghdad. If America is a melting pot, then to me India is a thali, a selection of sumptuous dishes in different bowls. Each tastes different and does not necessarily mix with the next, but they belong together on the same plate and they complement each other in making the meal a satisfying repast. Unquote. So this analogy of India being a thali, a selection of sumptuous dishes in different bowls, beautifully relates to its evolution as a nation, both culturally, literally, and economically. So this analogy also aptly captures the essence of India's evolution as a nation. It highlights its cultural diversity, geographical vastness, and multifaceted economy, emphasizing the unity that binds these diverse elements together. As India continues to evolve, the Thali metaphor also remains a powerful reminder of its rich heritage, cultural tapestry, and the potential for harmonious growth in all spheres. If you look at the dominant structures which are existing in India, of course, caste system comes to the top. The most pervasive social structure was the caste system, which divided society into hierarchical groups based on birth and occupation. It dictated social interactions, marriage, and access to resources. While the system varied across regions, it generally placed Brahmins at the top, followed by Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. Untouchables, also known as Dalits, were also excluded from caste system altogether and faced severe discrimination. Then, if you look at the religious diversity of India, India has a long history of religious pluralism, with Hinduism being the dominant religion throughout history. Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, Sikhism, and Jainism also had significant followings. Then, looking at the ethnicity and the languages of India, it has got nearly 121 languages with 22 scheduled languages. And then also, we can see that there is a considerable amount of ethnic population in India, with numerous languages and dialects existing throughout India, particularly among the tribal communities and smaller ethno-linguistic groups, and dominant by the Indo-Aryan group speaking Indo-European languages like Hindi, Bengali, Marathi, Punjabi, Gujarati, and Urdu, and forms the majority of Northeast, West, and Central India. And looking at the traditions of India, we can see that, and of course, the village communities, it was also abound in village communities. Indian society was largely agrarian, with a majority of the population living in villages. And these communities were often self-sufficient and governed by traditional councils. Land ownership, water rights, and social norms were determined by the local customs and practices. You can see in this slide the cultural diversity of India. That is, which this diversity has been woven across millennia, and it is indeed reflected in the multitude of traditions, historical experiences, and literary traditions. So, looking at the language, it boasts of 22 official languages and countless dialects. Almost, as I told you earlier, 121 languages and 2,778 dialects. Then coming to talking about the multilingualism, it is common in India with over 26% of the population speaking more than one language. Tamil, Sangam poetry, vibrant Rajasthani folk songs, and the verses of Sanskrit epics all stem from this linguistic diversity. Then looking at the festivals of India, we can see from the exuberant Holi to the serene Diwali, India's festivals pulsate with the spirit of each region. Onam in Kerala celebrates harvest with boat races. Bihu in Assam welcomes spring with joyous dances. And Durga Puja in Bengal worships powerful goddess with fervor. And the cuisine, every region spices up life with its distinct flavors. The fiery curries of Andhra Pradesh, then the dishes of Tamil Nadu, the fragrant biryanis of Lucknow, and the delicate sweets of Bengal. All these showcase the incredible variety on Indian platters. Then, related to clothing cultures, you can see India offers a plethora of varied clothing cultures, styles, and attires, which might be attributed to the diversity in religion, climate, and culture. We can see a variety of outfits from various states known for their colorfulness, beauty, and cultural heritage, which can be traced back to ancient civilization as well. And the world has also embraced India's culture and fashion while honoring its customs and heritage at the same time. And looking at the art and architecture, we can see from intricate stone carvings of Chola temples to the vibrant Varli paintings of Maharashtra, each region expresses its soul through its artistic traditions. The Mughal grandeur of Taj Mahal, the serene simplicity of Kerala's backwaters, and the bustling bazaars of Jaipur all reflect the historical influences that shape the land. In India, a crossroads, it can be seen as a crossroads of ancient civilization. It has absorbed influences from Persian traders, Greek explorers, and Silk Road merchants. And this intermingling is evident in Greco-Buddhist cultures, Indo-Islamic architecture, and the diverse trade communities that dot the landscape. Then coming to colonialism, the British Raj also left its mark on institutions, infrastructure, and even vocabulary. Yet it also sparked independence movements that celebrated diversity and unity, reflecting or which got reflected in the writings of Tagore and Gandhi. Then partition remains what you call a scarring mark in the history of India. But the 1947 partition is a painful chapter, undeniably, but it also birthed powerful literary and artistic expressions that grapple with displacement, identity, and loss. And these narratives also continue to resonate in contemporary art and literature. Then talking about the ancient epics, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana woven with regional variations and interpretations, they transcend geographical boundaries and offer profound insights into the human nature, mortality, and dharma. About the regional voices, I must mention Tamil Sangam poetry, Assamese one-act plays, then Urdu ghazals. All these paint vivid pictures of local customs, emotions, and landscapes, enriching the national literary tapestry. So in this slide, I just wanted to give you an outline of the historical evolution of India up to independence. I don't intend to go through each and every era in detail since there are limitations of time. So I'll quickly take you through the timeline that is right from Indus Valley Civilization, Vedic period, Magadha period, Mauryan Empire, Gupta Empire, Chola dynasty, medieval India, with including the Delhi Sultanate and Mughal Empire, Maratha Empire, then Vijayanagar Empire. I'm not actually giving in detail, but there'll be a passing reference on that. Then colonial India, British Raj, then modern India up to independent India. So beginning with the the Indus Valley civilization and the Harappa and Mohenjo-daro civilization. It is the advanced civilization with sophisticated urban planning and technology. And this was the first urban civilization in South Asia, coexisting with the Mesopotamian civilization and Egyptian civilization. The Harappan civilization occupied the largest area among the three civilizations. And it made noteworthy contributions to the art and architecture of the ancient history of India. You can see terracotta figurines here, then the remains of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa in the slide. Of course, this is the Indus script that has been used. And then the seals were used during this period. And I have one more slides, which will give you a much more clearer idea about Indus Valley civilization. Now, coming to the Vedic period, you can see that during the Vedic period, it marked the arrival of Indo-Aryan tribes who introduced the Vedic language and who composed the Vedas and the sacred Hindu scriptures. There you can see the development of the caste system dividing society into social classes based on occupation and birth. It also saw the rise of powerful kingdoms like Magadha Empire, which unified much of the northern subcontinent. Then it also gave much importance to oral tradition because Vedic knowledge was primarily transmitted orally through hymns, chants, and rituals. And the four Vedas, Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, and Atharvaveda, are the primary surviving texts which offer insights into the social structure, mythology, and religious practices of the ancient India. Then coming to the music and dance, music played a significant role in Vedic rituals and ceremonies. Stringed instruments like veena and percussion instruments like drums and cymbals were used. Dance was also there, often associated with religious festivals, and it was meant to appease deities and invoke blessings. Then limited remains access because due to the use of perishable materials like wood and mud break, few architectural structures from the Vedic period remain. However, references in the Vedas suggest dwellings were typically round or square huts with thatched roofs. Then you can see the fire altar there. Sacrificial fire rituals were central to Vedic religion, and elaborate fire altars or yajnashalas were constructed for these ceremonies. These altars could be temporary or permanent, built with earth or stone, and which these varied in size also and complexity. Then the later Vedic period is known as the Epic Age, and it was during this period that the two great epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, were written. And Vedas, the four Vedas I've already mentioned, they are the most prominent literary works of the Vedic period. And then other literary contributions during this period is Brahmanas, which were the prose texts which provide detailed instructions for conducting the Vedic rituals and ceremonies. Then, of course, Aranyakas and Upanishads were there. These later Vedic texts delve deeper into the philosophical and spiritual concepts. The Upanishads particularly are known for their exploration of the nature of reality, the Brahman, and the self. You can see that in archaeological museums in India, like the National Museum in Delhi or the Indian Museum in Kolkata, you can see the exhibits showcasing artifacts and models which are related to the Vedic period. If you are interested, you can visit. Then the Magadha period. Okay, the Magadha period, with roughly spanning from 600 BCE to 322 BCE, marked a vibrant epoch in ancient Indian history. This powerful kingdom, with its capital at Pataliputra, which is the modern Patna, not only flourished politically, but also excelled in art, literature, culture, and architecture, leaving behind a rich legacy that continues to inspire us today. The ancient kingdom of Magadha is heavily mentioned in Jain and Buddhist texts. It is also mentioned in Ramayana, Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Puranas. And the most important sources are the Buddhist Pali canon, the Jain Agamas, and the Hindu Puranas. And based on these sources, it appears that Magadha was ruled by the Haryanga dynasty for some 200 years. Then the kingdom of Magadha eventually came to encompass Bihar, Jharkhand, Orissa, West Bengal, Eastern Uttar Pradesh, and areas that are today the nations of Bangladesh and Nepal. The culture of Magadha was in fundamental ways different from the Vedic culture. In this culture, Kshatriyas were placed higher than Brahmins, and it rejected the Vedic authority and rituals. And among the Buddhist sites currently found in Magadha region include two UNESCO World Heritage Sites, such as the Mahabodhi Temple at Bodh Gaya in Bihar and Nalanda Monastery. The Pali language has been identified with Magahi, the language of the kingdom of Magadha, and this was taken also to be the language that the Buddha used during his lifetime. Vedic Hinduism was the dominant religion, but other faiths like Jainism and Buddhism also began to gain prominence during this period. And this period laid the foundation for the rise of powerful empires in India, established trade routes also, and saw the rise of influential figures like Bimbisara and Ajatashatru, which we are familiar with in history. Then, by the 4th century BC, the Mauryas established their power in the Magadha region under Emperor Ashoka, and this period is known for embracing Buddhism and promoting non-violence. Under Ashoka, Buddhism became the state religion after his conversion following the Kalinga War. He actively promoted Buddhist principles like non-violence and ahimsa through edicts and monuments. At his zenith under Ashoka, the Maurya Empire stretched from Afghanistan in the west to Bangladesh in the east, encompassing almost the Indian subcontinent, ushering in an era of prosperity and cultural exchange. And this period saw the development of a highly efficient and centralized bureaucratic system with provinces, ministers, and a sophisticated spy network also. And this system was influenced by Kautilya's Arthashastra, which became a model for future Indian empires. And this period also saw the flourishing of stone sculpture and iconic examples like Ashoka pillars and the lion capital of Sarnath. Sarnath, the pillar capital, symbolizes the first sermon by Buddha. And during this period, Hellenistic influence also seems to have played a role in the establishment of Indian monumental stone architecture. Excavations in the ancient palace of Pataliputra have brought to light Hellenistic sculptural works, and Hellenistic influence appears in the pillars of Ashoka also at about the same period, which you can see in the Ashoka pillar here. And it is a national emblem also, adopted as a national emblem by the government of India on 26 January 1950. And the empire also contributed significantly to rock cut architecture with caves like Barabar and Ajanta, and they are among India's oldest rock cut caves, which reveals the Achaemenid and Hellenistic influences on the Indian stone carving traditions. Then Mauryan art and architecture were a culmination of a long movement which began indigenously, I must say. It was quite different from the earlier art traditions in that it departed from the use of wood, sun-dried bricks, clay, ivory, and metal to that of stone in huge dimensions. Then one of the most important features of Mauryan art is, as I told you earlier, Achaemenid connection. Achaemenid is the first Persian empire founded by Cyrus the Great in Western and Central Asia, and it draws its name from Achaemenus, who ruled Persia. Then there was an existence of Stamba architecture also during this period, which had its beginning in wood. It got transformed slowly into the new medium stone. Then you can see a great number of pottery and sculptures during this period. Large statues of yakshas and yakshinis are found at places like Patna and Madura. It shows the popularity of yaksha worship and how it became part of the figure representation in Buddhist and Jain religious monuments. Then, as far as literature is concerned, Indika, the famous work by Megasthenes, which tells the story of India during the reign of Maurya dynasty, and Kautilya's Arthashastra stand out. which is a detailed work on statecraft, which consists of 15 volumes dealing with internal administration, tantra, interstate relations, and miscellaneous topics as such. Coming to the Gupta Empire, it is considered as a golden period in Indian history, marked by scientific advancements, artistic achievements, and literary masterpieces. This period witnessed the development of the decimal system, zero symbol, and astronomical calculations. And this period also saw the flourishing of Gupta architecture, which is evident in Ajanta and Ellora caves. And this period was bright in the history of classical literature, because it developed an adorned style which is different from Sanskrit. And during this period, more emphasis was also placed on verse rather than prose. Sanskrit was the official language, of course. Although much Brahmanical religious literature was produced during this period, it was also remarkable, or it became remarkable for the rise of secular literature also, consisting of a fair degree of court poetry. And the Gupta rule between 300 and 600 CE is termed as a golden age, as I said earlier, for the development of science and emphasis on Indian art and literature. And Kalidasa, the eminent dramatist, lived in the court of Chandragupta II under his patronage, and he is known for his remarkable works, Shakuntala, Malavika, Mitra, and Meghadoodam. Vikramorvishya, and the two well-known epics, Raghuvamsha and also the other one, Kumarasambhava. Then this period also saw the development of Purana, Smritis, and Dharmashala literature. This is when Yajnavalkya Smriti was written, which is almost considered as the Gupta's official legal book. And this Smriti is one of the many Dharma-related texts of Hinduism composed in Sanskrit, belonging to the Dharmashala tradition. And the text was composed after Manusmriti in sloka style. Then comes the Chola Empire, and Cholas rose to prominence under Rajaraja Chola and his son Rajendra Chola I. This period saw the rise of maritime enterprises, which stretched from Sri Lanka to Ganges in the north. Then it also displayed advanced shipbuilding and navigational skills, architecture, and development of Tamil literature and art. Bronze sculptures can be seen. You can see this. This is also a very popular bronze sculpture of the 12th century. Then this period also saw the sophisticated administrative system, and this period we can see India established itself as a maritime power on the world stage. And as far as literature is concerned, we must remember the contributions of Kamban here. Kamban's Ramayana, that's a prominent work which was produced during this period. Then coming to medieval India, we can see the medieval India saw the rise and fall of various religious regional kingdoms, including the Chalukyas, Pallavas, and Cholas in the south, and the Delhi Sultanate in the north. This era saw the spread of Islam and its influence on Indian art, architecture, and cuisine. Then there was growth of trade and maritime connections, leading to interactions with Southeast Asia and beyond. Then Gurukul system of education can be seen during this period, which centered around a teacher and a small group of students, which emphasized holistic education, focusing on the spiritual development, intellectual pursuits, physical training, and ethical contact. Then one of the striking features of the early medieval Indian literature is that the several of the new languages that were developed earlier, they intrinsically revitalized and recreated the classics of the ancient Indian literature. The epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata received a revival during this time, these newly formulated languages. And other ancient works like Panchatantra and numerous other Puranas and myths came to be retold, creating an interrelation between these classics and modern languages. Then several authors like Krittivas Oja in Bengali, Sarala Das in Oriya, then Elthachan in Malayalam, Tulasi Das in Hindi, and Nannaya in Telugu stood out for the common man. Then the rivers of India also were greatly celebrated in medieval Indian literature, like Brahmaputra, Ganga, Yamuna, Godavari, Satluj, and so on. Apart from apparent and explicit references, there were subtle ways in which nature penetrated into the literary works. the hills of Manipur, the rivers of Upper India, the desert of Rajasthan, the panorama of Konkan and Kerala, the snow-topped peaks of Kashmir, all of these have furnished staple poetic themes for medieval literature. Then another significant thing that happened during this time is the regional grouping of literature on the basis of ethnic similarity or geographical proximity, or even through mutual transactions. That is, both thematic and stylistic aspects had aided to form this proximity. Assamese, Bengali, and Oriya manifest this. It is also noticed that at times the same writers also made use of different languages. Tamil and Malayalam is an example. Then Kannada and Telugu also form the group. So, and also this period witnessed an influx of migratory population. And this population brought with it different beliefs, customs, practices, and lifestyles, turning major portions of India into an ablaze pot. The end result is a vibrant kaleidoscope of language and literature, which absolutely mirrored and reflected upon these themes of competition between two dominant religions, Hinduism and Islam. So, medieval Indian literature wholly banked upon these themes, creating its own distinctive history in the long run. And medieval period was also recognized by a number of social movements which contested the prevailing orthodoxy and dogmatism. Reformist, especially reformist movements like Bhakti movement. The key players of this movement were Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikh religion, Kabir, numerous Sufi saints. They together echoed religious harmony and ostracized intolerance, casteism, and pomposity. However, all forms of Bhakti movement, both for Muslims and Hindus, peacefully coexisted and were immeasurably popular with the masses. The period within 14th to 17th century witnessed a wave of Bhakti movement sweeping across the North India. And teachers of this movement were saints like Vallabhacharya, Mirabai, Kabir, Tulasidas, Tukaram, and various others. And all of these personas were substantial to amplify the scope of medieval Indian literature, who penned in vernacular prose and poetry in ethnic language of the state. Even seminal works in regional languages on the theme of Bhakti are explored, as we can see in Shyama Samgeet in Bengal, which were composed by Ram Prasad Sen and which has become part of Bengali culture. And another Bengali leader in Bhakti movement was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who defined a system of philosophy which meant inconceivable and simultaneous oneness and difference. Then Persian became the official language of most of the Muslim dynasties in the Indian subcontinent, such as the Delhi Sultanate, the Bengal Sultanate, the Mughal Empire, and their successor states in the Sikh Empire as well. It was also the dominant cultural language of poetry and literature. And Persian would still retain an audience and even produce commendable literature such as the philosophical poetry of Muhammad Iqbal. And the British also would absorb elements of culture's architectural style into the buildings of the Raj, producing Indo-Saracenic architecture. The Indo-Persian synthesis led to the development of Kisi that combined indigenous foods and ingredients with the tastes and methods of the Turco-Persians. And this was especially under Mughals, who invited cooks from various parts of the Islamic world, and it was further developed in the kitchens of regional Islamic powers, leading to distinctive styles such as Awadhi and Hyderabadi cuisines. The Indian subcontinent's Islamic period produced architecture that drew stylistically from Persian culture, using features such as domes, minars, and baghs. And early Islamic rulers also tended to use elements from Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain buildings, resulting in an Indianized style which was refined by later kingdoms. And the main buildings produced were mosques, fort, and tombs, and they still stand today and are well represented in the architecture of cities such as Lahore, Delhi, and Hyderabad, to name a few. Then the Vijayanagar Empire also used Indo-Persian architecture and Hooghly monuments. The subsequent Indo-Persian synthesis resulted in an influx of Iranian musical instruments also, and also Hindustani classical music. Some of the main instruments used in this manner was sitar and sarod. Then musical genres like Kayal and Tarana also developed during this period, and musical performance of ghazals are examples of the Indo-Persian musical confluence. Notably, the Sufi devotional music of Qawwali bears evident impact from Persian influence, such as the frequent use of Persian poems, which is credited to the 13th century poet and poet scholar and musician Amir Khusru. Then this period also saw the rise of important poets like Nisa Ghalib, then Mir Taqi Mir, Muhammad Ibrahim Sauk, then Faiz Ahmad Faiz, who has been nominated 4 times for Nobel Prize for Literature. Then Dag Delbi, whose Urdu ghazals have been musically rendered by popular Indian and Pakistani singers even now, like the likes of Jagjit Singh, Pankaj Udas, and Noor Jahan. Then another prominent thing happened was the rise of Urdu literature. Urdu literature is a vast field of immense knowledge and rich literary works by famous poets and writers. Though Hindi and Urdu have the same root, they have developed and evolved on distinct lines. Urdu language literature has basically drawn much inspiration from Persian literature. The most noted poet who gave the first push to Urdu poetry was Amir Khusro, as I mentioned earlier, who is still revered today, centuries after his death. The 18th century also saw the refinement of words and many forms of writings like ghazals, nazms, doha, etc. The Holy Book of Muslims, Quran, was translated into Urdu language in the year 1803. In modern times, Osmania University, founded in 1918 in Hyderabad, uses Urdu language as a medium of instruction of education. And the Urdu language has a rich literary tradition in the Indian subcontinent, ranging from Mirza Ghalib's poetry to Saadat Hasan Manto's social realist short stories about partition. Writers like Muhammad Iqbal, with the famous poem Tarana-e Milli, also reached audiences across India and connect the Muslim struggle with the broader nationalist movement. The Urdu and short story was preceded by Dastango, or oral storytelling tradition. And during the partition period, Urdu fiction primarily dealt with themes of migration, identity, and decolonization. Now let us look at the Delhi Sultanate, which spanned from 1206 to 1526 AD, and it was a period of significant changes and dynamism in history. The Delhi Sultanate established Islam as a major religion in India, with mosque and Sufi movements influencing social and cultural life. And Islam, there was a synthesis of cultures, Islamic and Hindu elements blended in art, architecture, and literature, creating a unique Indo-Islamic style. Economic growth, related to economic growth, trade flourished under the Sultanate, with Delhi becoming the major center for commerce and exchange of goods and ideas. Then there was a centralized administration. Sultanate implemented a centralized system of governance with provinces ruled by governors, and a complex revenue system was there. Then regarding the architectural achievements, we must remember Qutbuddin Aibak's contribution. Qutub Minar in Delhi, Alauddin Khilji's military campaigns also stands out during this period. And then Muhammad Tughlaq's economic reforms also one cannot forget of during this period. Then coming to the Mughal Empire, founded by Babur, the empire reached its zenith under Akbar, who promoted religious tolerance and cultural integration. A construction of iconic Mughal landmarks like Taj Mahal and Red Fort can be seen during this period. Then influence of Persian and Central Asian traditions on Indian art and literature and courtly life. The Mughal Empire was extremely important, an important era in the cultural history of Indian subcontinent. Babur founded the Mughal Empire in 1526 after defeating Ibrahim Lodi in the first battle of Panipat. And the arts like painting, textiles, literature, poetry, and architecture also flourished during this period. And the most important literary works were produced in the Persian language during the Mughal era because it was considered as an official and courtly language. Sufi and Bhakti sayings also preached in local languages. Emperor Babur wrote several poems, and his memoir Babanama has received widespread acclaim from scholars. It was written in Turkish language. Then his autobiography, Tuzuki Baburi, was written by him in Turkish language, which was translated 3 times into Persian. Emperor Akbar was also fond of arts and created a grand library of over 24,000 manuscripts. Many scholars, poets, writers were patronized during this period, which led to a surge of the original works being produced. Authors such as Abul Fazl, Abul Faizi, Nizamuddin Abad, Abbas Khan, Shawani, etc., composed historical works under Akbar's reign. Abul Fazl was one of the 9 jewels of the Akbar's royal court, and he wrote Akbarnama, which is the royal history of Akbar's reign. Then Jahangir also likewise produced, he was intrigued with art and architecture, and he too wrote his autobiography, Jahangirnama. Many Sanskrit works were also translated into Persian. Two of these major Sanskrit epics were Mahabharata and Ramayana. Then regional languages such as Bengali, Gujarati, or Oriya, Rajasthani has also developed during this era with translations. And one such example of this development was the translation of stories from Bhagavad Gita into regional languages. And the most famous Hindi poet was Tulasidas, and his well-known works were in Sanskrit and Awadhi. He wrote the Ramcharitmanas. Then Sudas was yet another prolific writer, even more than Tulasidas, and who was addressed as the blind bard of Agra. And Sudas's poetry was written in Brajbhasha, a dialect of Hindi, which boosted the dialect's rank among the Persian or Sanskrit, which were literary languages. And there were Muslim poets also like Abdul Rahim Khan Khana and Ras Khan, who interpreted Indian literature very perfectly. Then coming to the Maratha culture, Maratha's reign wasn't just about political prowess and military feats. It also marked a significant chapter in the cultural evolution of Western and Central India. Under Marathas, Marathi flourished as a literary and administrative language. The court of Shivaji actively promoted Marathi, replacing Persian as the official language. And epic poems like Bhaveshi narrated Shivaji's exploits, instilling pride and inspiring future generations. Oral traditions also thrived during this period, with bards and storytellers recounting heroic tales of Marathi battles and legendary figures. This helped transmit history, culture, and values across communities. Marathas adorned their territories with unique architectural styles. Temple designs incorporated elements of Deccan and Rajput architecture, creating a distinctive aesthetic. Then the Rajasthani or the Deccani style paintings of Balbag, that is at Pune, best testimony to this. Skilled artisans crafted ornate jewelry, weapons, textiles, etc., showcasing the region's artistic craftsmanship. Then you can also see the development of exquisite cotton weaves of Maheshwar and Chanderi during this period. Then comes the colonial era with the arrival of European powers, notably the British East India Company, which gradually gained control of much of India. British colonization in the 18th and 19th centuries introduced Western education systems with a focus on secular subjects. English language and standardized examinations were also there, and this led to the establishment of new schools and universities. Alongside, there are debates about preserving the traditional knowledge systems too. Then the interaction of Western and Indian educational system resulted in a unique blend of approaches, a cultural syncretism. Modern disciplines like science and mathematics were incorporated, while traditional subjects like Sanskrit and philosophy continued to be valued. And this period also saw the emergence of prominent intellectuals who engaged in dialogues between Eastern and Western traditions. While British colonization initially had limited impact on regional languages and literatures, the focus on English education and Western norms in the later 19th century gradually marginalized indigenous and regional expressions. The rise of Indian independence movement in the early 20th century saw a renewed interest in regional languages and literatures. However, and writers and scholars actively revived and promoted these traditions, recognizing their importance in shaping national identity. Then resistance to colonial rule control continued through rebellions like the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857. And this period also saw the emergence of Indian National Congress led by figures like Mahatma Gandhi advocating for non-violent resistance and self-rule. Then renowned writers like Ravindranath Tagore in Bengali, Premchand in Hindi, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee in Bengali, Subramanya Bharati in Tamil became powerful forces of the movement. Through their novels, poems, and plays, they explored themes of colonialism, social injustice, and earning for freedom. These literary figures actively revived folk traditions, ancient epics, and regional cultural heritage. They drew inspiration from local languages and stories, recontextualizing them within the framework of the Indian independence struggle. Then, talking about the literature during the Raj, that is, the Raj era saw a cultural awakening, with literature and art playing a pivotal role in resisting colonial influence. And during the second phase from 1813 to 1853 was dominated however, by Christian missionaries and humanitarians who pressurized East India Company for the education of Indians. Macaulay's Minute of Education formed the basis of company's educational policy, as we all know, and marked the victory of Anglicists and the progressive Indians over the Orientalists. And by the middle of the 19th century, almost all of the India was under the direct control of British or under the rule of pliable native kings, rendered impotent by the British monopoly of foreign affairs and military power. In 1857, the apparent tranquility of the Indian subcontinent was shattered by the revolt of a handful of Indian soldiers in Meerut. And the relative stability and steady economic progress of the latter half of the century were marred by paranoid fears of Russian incursions in the north and also the consequent involvement with the Second Afghan War. So the tide of history was turning, and however, an attempt to partition Bengal in 1905 also led to an upsurge of organized Indian protests. That the measure was finally revoked in 1911. Gandhi's campaigns of civil disobedience also gained impetus. The British began to make reluctant concessions, allowing Indians to occupy a limited number of administrative posts and espousing a policy of dual government. So in this context, we must talk about Indian Renaissance. That is, it was a fascinating period of history, often referred to as a socio-intellectual revolution that spanned roughly from 19th century onwards, a period of cultural, social, and intellectual revival in India, whose father is, of course, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who started off with Bengal Renaissance, questioning traditional norms and practices with renewed emphasis on India's rich heritage. Of course, these reformers were inspired by Western ideas and advancements, but they were fiercely independent and they seek to redefine and reclaim India's identity. We saw several reformation movements like abolition of sati, widow remarriage, women's education. Then caste system was also critiqued very much by Ambedkar and Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Then Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar and Jyoti Bai Phule's contribution cannot be forgotten to the Indian Renaissance. Then, of course, religious reformation movements were there. Arya Samaj by Dayanand Saraswati, and then Ramakrishna Mission was also established by Swami Vivekananda during this time. We can say that Indian Renaissance helped to flourish literature and arts, reflecting new ideas and perspectives with the liberal contributions from Tagore, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, and Raja Rao. And it also laid seeds for the fight for freedom, nurtured through critiques of colonialism and a reawakening of national pride. Ambedkar played a pivotal role in Indian Renaissance, particularly in the realm of social reform and the fight for equality. As the chairman of the Constitution drafting India, he shaped the core principles of the Indian Constitution, including the fundamental rights, affirmation of active policies, and federal structure. The contributions of Vivekananda, Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, S. Radhakrishnan is worth remembering in this regard. Because of limitations of time, I'm limiting them to these sentences alone. Then talking about the Indo-Anglian literature, I cannot actually leave that. And the Indian Anglian literature comprises mostly literary works written for Indian writers or Indian writers of Indian origin, whose roots can be traced back to 18th century in the works of writers like Henry de Rossio, Michael Madhusudan Dutt, Sarojini Naidu, Toru Dutt, Aravinda Ghosh, and many more. However, it wasn't until 20th century that the genre flourished with the emergence of iconic figures like Tagore, then R.K. Narayan, the trio R.K. Narayan, Multrajan, and Raja Rao. Then from the modernist period and after, we saw the contributions of poets like Nisim Ezekiel, A.K. Ramanujan, Parthasarathy, Jean Patel, who left us recently, and so on. Then I must also talk about the progressive writers movement during this time with the contributions given by Sajid Hussain and Abdul Halim. Progressive writers movement, the AIWC, had its roots in the political revolution of Russia in 1917. The social intellectuals of India, they were scattered, and they tried to bring out a conference in Lucknow with Sajid Hussain taking initiatives, and the first presidential address was given by Jawaharlal Nehru. When it comes to Urdu, you can see that even though Urdu thrived, Hindi faced uncertainty regarding the choice of literary language. That is, there was a conflict between Brajabhasha and Kariboli. Then I have devoted a separate slide for indigenous and folk traditions and culture, because indigenous oral traditions paint a vibrant and fascinating tapestry woven from diverse communities, rich languages, and ancient stories which have been passed down through generations. Each region developed its own literary traditions with epics, poems, ballads, and folk tales flourishing in Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Bengali, Punjabi, and other languages. Oral storytelling and folk performances also kept these traditions alive across generations. Shilapadigaram is a typical example, is an epic poem considered to be composed by Ilango Adigal, which is one of the greatest work of Tamil literature. Then from Adivasi communities in the northeast to the Gond tribes of central India, each region boasts unique folk tales that echo with the rhythms of nature, their voices resonating with the whispers of wind and the songs of birds. Then the pulsating beats of dol drums of Punjab, the soulful chants of the Santal tribes of Bengal, and the melodies of the tribal flutes of the Nagaland. All these musical traditions carry ancestral wisdom and connect communities to the spirit of the land. Then every step in a Bihu dance in Assam tells a story of harvest and joy, while Bhangra of Punjab celebrates communal spirit and resilience. In Kerala also, we could see Theyyam dancers transform into mythical beings enacting ancient legends through vibrant costumes and rhythmic moments. Then births, weddings, and even funerals are marked by unique chants connecting the present to ancestral traditions and offering solace and celebration through shared rituals. Then indigenous communities hold intimate knowledge of their ecosystems, which were passed down through generations through stories about medicinal plants, animal behavior, and sustainable practices. These oral narratives are testaments to their deep connection with the natural world. And they also displayed a kind of a respect for elders, ancestors, and the natural world, which is just woven into the fabric of these traditions. And stories often teach valuable lessons about environmental sustainability, community bonds, and living in harmony with nature. So quickly, I'll go through this slide if I'm actually transcending the limitations of time. So cinema, I think I must devote a slide for this. Cinema was a cultural unifier because the role played by Indian cinema is significant. Cinema has played a significant role in the context of India's regional languages and folk traditions. It has acted a powerful platform for uniting India. And Indian cinema has drawn heavily from folk tales, myths, and legends, adapting them into a captivating narratives for the big screen. Regional films also incorporated music, dance, and art forms in their storytelling, preserving and popularizing these traditions among generations. The father of Indian cinema, everybody knows Dada Sahib Phalke, released the first ever full-length movie. During this period, the Raja Harishchandra was released in 1930. Then this was over a silent film. But the first ever talkie was Alamara by Adesh Irani, which was screened in Bombay in 1931. It was the first sound film in India. And this release of Alamara started a new era in the history of Indian cinema. The first Bengali feature film was Nal Damayanti, which was released in 1913. Then the year 1919 saw the screening of the first silent South Indian feature film called Kejagavadam. So Indian cinema continued to grow and expand with more and more films being produced each year. In the 1940s, Indian film industry was the largest in the world in terms of the number of films produced. And it also tackled the social and political issues. The years leading up to Indian independence and partition in 1947 had a significant impact on Indian cinema. Many filmmakers used their art to comment on the political situation, while others focused on telling stories of the struggles of the common people. Talking about the international recognition, Indian cinema began to gain international recognition in the 50s, only the 50s and 60s, with the emergence of filmmakers like Satyajit Ray, who won the Cannes Film Festival award for his film Pader Panchali. So again, I'm quickly going through the slide performance and oral tradition because it cannot be neglected. India boasts of a vibrant tapestry of performing arts deeply woven into this rich cultural heritage. You can see the graceful swirls of classical dance forms to the pulsating forms of the folk music. These art forms offer a captivating glimpse into the soul of the nation. That is Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Odissi, Kuchipudi. All of us know about all these dance forms, to folk songs that is Bhangra, then Chao of Odissi, of Jharkhand and Odissi and West Bengal, and Bihu of Assam, to folk theatre of that is Yakshagana of Karnataka and Kudiyattam of Kerala. Each region boasts its own unique tradition and style, offering a window into the country's rich cultural tapestry. And so, whether you are captivated by the movements of the classical dance or the energetic rhythms of the folk music or captivating narratives of the traditional theatre, India's performing arts have something else to offer to everyone. Then puppetry is also another vibrant facet of India's performing art with a rich history which is quite diverse from across the country. Shadow puppets they were called translucent puppets, often made of leather. They are manipulated behind the screen lit from behind. Then popular forms include Tolu, Bombalata, and then string puppets were of course were there in that this Bommalatam was not only in Andhra Pradesh but it was in Tamil Nadu as well. Then with different forms of puppetry manifested in Orissa and Rajasthan also. Then, of course, oral traditions. I have already mentioned about oral traditions, but India's oral traditions are so vast and vibrant as the land itself. You can see that stretching back for millennia and encompassing a mesmerizing array of languages, cultures, and stories passed down through generations through the evocative power of spoken words, chants, and performances. From agricultural practices to ethical principles, oral traditions transmit invaluable knowledge and cultural values across generations, shaping social norms and identity. And they act as a bridge also to the past, transmitting stories and customs for centuries without relying on the written records. And they also offer platforms for creative expressions through storytelling, music, dance, and performance, enriching the cultural experience. Then finally coming to independence. So after prolonged struggle and negotiations, India finally achieved independence from British rule on August 15, 1947. And however, the sad fact was that the country was partitioned, the subcontinent was partitioned into two nations, India with a Hindu majority and Pakistan with a Muslim majority. And this even marked a pivotal moment in Indian history, paving the way for the world's largest democracy to emerge on the global stage. Because, yeah, that also partition has two different aspects. Okay, it has a negative and positive aspect. But then coming to the partition literature, I'll be talking about partition literature. But before that, let me also mention something about the Sahitya Academy. Because Sahitya Academy's multifaceted efforts created a global spotlight for Indian literature, attracting attention to its depth, diversity, and unique perspectives. Through his awards, publications, collaborations, and initiatives, Academy contributes significantly to a kind of deeper understanding of India's cultural landscape and intellectual contributions on the world stage. And I must say, though it was established in 1954, it remains as an Indian organization of letters, or India's premier national literary institution, dedicated to the promotion and development of Indian languages and literature. So, Sahitya Academy also is preserving and nurturing India's diverse linguistic heritage. And it has also recognized and celebrated literary excellence across languages. Then it has also increased the global visibility of Indian literature to the world, along with promoting cross-cultural understanding and dialogue.
Sorry
So
for
coming to the
interrupting, Chitra, we are overstepping time. So
yeah, so ma'am, I'm just winding up. Let me just come to 2-3 points of partition, shall I?
yeah.
Yeah, the partition of India was a pivotal and traumatic event that left a scar, as I said, and the forced migration, and as a result of which, some things happened. That is the forced migration of millions across newly drawn borders. Then the partition literature explored this, the loss of homes, loved ones, and identities, capturing the pain and uncertainty of displacement. And it was also characterized by widespread violence between Hindus and Muslims. Literature delves into the horror and absurdity of this sectarian hatred and its impact on the individuals and communities. Then the psychological scars of partition, of course, was poignantly explored by writers, which display grief, anger, and disillusionment, who witnessed and suffered through this violence. Then partition literature often revolves around personal narratives and oral histories, individuals and families grappling with the past, trying to make sense of the tragedy and preserving their stories for future generations. Women's experiences were also explored by the writers who were disproportionately affected by the partition, facing violence, sexual assault, and loss of agency. So the most important works we all know is that is the writers Kushwant Singh, Bapsi Sidhua, then the poems of Amrita Preetham, and then the short stories of Saadat Hasan Manto. So summing up, that is this is a slide which I think I needn't explain, because this was the literary landscape that went through right from the ancient Indus Valley civilization up to the post-independence period. So as ma'am has given me a warning, I'm just skipping the slide and then coming to the last one, that is concluding part. So what picture of India do we get after traveling through all these things? A picture from resilience and struggle to empowerment and leadership. You can see a picture there. That is a cyclist there in front of the G20. That board, the plaque is there, G20 of, and then just before that, you can see a cyclist. So looking at the picture, it is quite clear what kind of struggle India underwent, and how the trajectory of India's struggle from resilience to empowerment and leadership. So India's G20 presidency can leverage its diverse stories to create platforms for intercultural exchange, fostering respect and collaboration on global issues. And this can also be seen as representing the narrative of South Asian region, which is often underrepresented on the global stage. And India's rich language traditions, literature and art forms can be powerful tools for soft power also within G20. And through cultural initiatives and exchange programs, India can share its unique stories, shaping a more nuanced and empathetic understanding of its role in the world. This cultural influence can also foster goodwill and cooperation, creating a more harmonious atmosphere for addressing the global challenges. And this can encourage the G20 to move beyond the pure economic consideration and acknowledge the importance of cultural, social, and environmental factors in shaping a sustainable and just future. Thank you.
Thank you, Chitra, for getting so much of history into a nutshell. I know I gave you a colossal task to sweep from the history, beginnings of history, right up to the independence, but you did a good job. And thank you for that very detailed analysis of the struggle that India has gone through to, as you said, empowerment and leadership. The floor is now open for comments, questions.
Chitra, can you stop sharing?
Yeah, yes.
Chitra, you can stop sharing.
Yeah, ma'am. Just I was just searching for that. I couldn't actually.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Anything you'd like to add to what Chitra has said? Vasandi Ramesh says we could make it as a series. Very well done. Thank you, Ushaji Trivandrum branch. And Lakshmi Bai says that was a real walk through history. Thank you for the information in a nutshell.
Actually, what I feel is there should be 2 sessions on this particular topic, because it was so vast, and she could not complete some portion. Maybe important things were left, but I really definitely congratulate to her that she has made so much efforts to put everything in this particular event. Thank you very much for giving us our own history and also the today's position.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, we all learned our history in school, so it was nice going back in time and brushing up the history that we had forgotten. And the detailed analysis actually brought a lot of memories about sitting in a classroom and listening to Indian history.
What we had learned in so many years,
Yeah.
the school, that's what we have gone into in this 1 hour's time. So it was not an easy task to cover all these things. And I felt that one of the indigenous and folk traditions and culture, that is something, which cannot be limited to one slide. It needs a full session if you go through each of the states, and so much of vast culture is there. It really needs one full session. So that's what I felt.
Yeah. I know. That's why when I and Chitra talked about how could we do this, I said maybe you won't be able to do the entire thing in one session. So let us break it up into two. But still, as you said, even the one session that she has just done can offer material for multiple sessions.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. But it was good, very well explained. And you went through it without any break. You right from the civilization, Indus Valley civilization. And one thing I was just thinking, we have done all those 9 countries of G20. We have done these countries, but I don't think this much of vast history or culture, diverse culture would be there in any of those. I feel so. I don't know if I'm correct or not.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, actually. Even when I was thinking about this, how do we sort of make this presentation about India? I also felt there was so much to be said, maybe because we are so close to our own history. But I don't think any other country has this kind of rich culture or historical background as India has.
Or even the diversity in languages and in every conceivable field, the diversity we have. And it was very interesting how she linked the literary progress with the historical progress. So, when we learned history separately and literature was separate. So now she has linked both together. So we can relate the writers and poets to the period in which they wrote, and that made it very interesting. Thank you, Chitra. It was really very good that we could link these. I think Kalpana Roy wants to say something.
Yeah, please.
Yes, it's beautiful, amazing. I'm a history teacher, but I am spellbound. I'm spellbound. It is. I thinking that finished. Why finished? Why? More 1 hour it can run. Very nice, very nice. So much informative and colorful pictures are there and posters there. Actually, I have not expressed my feelings in my word. Very nice, very nice. Thank you, Ushaji. Thank you, Trivandrum branch. Thank you, Chitraji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kalpana. She is from Calcutta and she runs a school. She herself is a teacher. And I think Kuljit say something. Kuljit?
Okay, Usha, the whole program was so mesmerizing. But first of all, I must thank Madam Jamila Begum. She always sets the tune for that, no? And half of the things, your mood is always to understand and learn what the speaker is going to say. So this Chitra has done a wonderful job in a very little time, a small content. She didn't miss anything. All the writers, all the Bhakti movement participants, all the cultures, all the languages. She has covered everything in every period. But now I think that since she has touched the different periods, Usha, I'll request you to arrange a different program on each time. Maurya time and this Mughal time, British time, all that different topics, so we can learn more and more, because due to the paucity of time, she had to leave so much which she had already prepared. And the things were very interesting. We are history student, literature and history. Those are two correlated subjects. If you are a history student, you are a literature student. If you're a literature student, you're a history student. So history is our first love. And the way she has explained, without missing any important point, it was really mesmerizing. Really, thank you so much, Usha ji, for arranging. And thank you so much, Chitra, for putting so much of hard work. Really, I can see that you have put in lots of hard work, but we didn't give you justice because in the end you had to run through. So it's better that we have another program also, 2, 3 programs, so we can learn more about our own history. That's what I feel. Isn't it?
Thank you,
Jamila ji, do you agree with that?
Thank you so much.
Most welcome.
Yeah, we'll think about it. And actually, something that I wanted to add to what you said was, when you look at the architecture and the way it moved from the earth and the mud architecture to the stone architecture, and then later it went to the metal architecture. And the progress, I think, Chitra, you did very well.
And now she has mentioned about the World Heritage also, those monuments also she has mentioned. So all the important names, including this modern writers about Amrita Pritam and Khushwant Singh, she didn't miss anything. So that's why I'm saying for every period, I think we should have a separate program so that we can learn more about our own history.
Yeah,
and you still left.
We'll take that suggestion.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think Manju wanted to say something. She was unmuting.
Good evening. I'm Manjula Suresh from Coimbatore.
Yeah.
Anyway, hearty congratulations to the speaker, Dr. Chitra. She has put in a lot of efforts to link history and literature. I was reminded of my history teachers of school and English literature teachers of college. It was just like a flashback. So anyway, let me congratulate the speaker. It was a very good session, and we admire you for the efforts you have taken, Chitra.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
We have a couple of notes here in the chat box. I don't know who this is, but it says, what a fascinating presentation. You have covered the entire history of India, its culture and literature all in a nutshell. Samsung, the name is not there, whoever has logged in from Samsung SM says that. From Geeta Balasubramaniam, I want to say that it should be in 2 parts because it is a vast topic. And Ma'am Chitra did a great job to compile within restricted time. Thank you very much taking us through the path of history. Thank you, Chitra. And Manju CR says, an excellent presentation with beautiful explanations and well-prepared slides. Thank you. That slide of the textiles of India is something that really fascinates one every time you look at it.
Very true.
Oh, that was Kala who said that. Okay, what a fascinating presentation.
The first chat.
Yeah.
The first message I've given.
Would you like to say something?
No, congrats. It was really wonderful, to limit, within the short period, she has covered such a lot of history and culture and literature. Is really amazing. Congrats, Dr. Chitra.
Thank you, ma'am.
It was like Vande Bharat taking us through India.
Yes.
That's a good one. And Delhi is very cold.
Really?
You people are just sitting with saris and all.
Saris, what we are sweating.
Just see. So many woolens I'm wearing and still feeling cold.
That's why you have not opened your video, ma'am.
I can open my video. Video opening is no problem. Only thing is I've removed my cap, no?
Yeah, nice to see you.
Same here. You would really set a stage very nicely about everything. But every country we have touched, you always give a very good introduction.
Thank you. I didn't say much actually.
No, but I liked Greece the best.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I hope fulcrum of this program is Jamila ji.
Oh, no, not at all. But it's always nice to hear the history and the literature and the culture of so many different countries. You know, they come before us like a movie moving in front of us. And particularly the slides that you chose were also very good, Chitra.
Greece presentation was also very good. In a very different way, he had given the presentation. Now, what about France?
France, we are still looking around for a person. We haven't got somebody who can do that for us. Because there are literature people who will do French literature, but to get the history and culture also into it is a little difficult. But we'll come to that. Today, actually, I was thinking about France, and I knew there was one more session with Chitra because she'll be doing the session from the Republic to the present times. I think most of the literature of the partition and all will come in there because that is a phase where a lot of writers talked about the agony and the kind of family ties that were broken, the suffering that they endured, and in such beautiful, emotional and sensitive language. You have to read partition literature actually to understand what really happened during the partition.
Amrita Pritam's poetry, Sadim Hussein's short stories, and even Khushwant Singh's also. I mean, those touch your heart. No, those are the true stories. And
Shaina Singh Baldwin has written a book. She's a Canadian writer, but she has written about this partition. She's a Punjabi who left India way back, but she traces the partition and what her family went through.
But Usha, you remember we had one book in the library about the women, what they have faced during partition. I think Aparna Basu's sister, she had translated that from Gujarati to English. Did you remember the name?
No, I don't actually, that is unfortunate. I don't remember the name or the name of the author. But that was not about partition. It was about what happened later.
Later in 1950.
1953, when the women were brought back and the women of Pakistan were sent back, and very sad stories because they were not allowed to take the children.
That was a very.
I suggest that if you can talk to the people in the library, especially.
No, I went to the library in search of that book. I couldn't locate. I asked Ranjana also.
No, ask Saroj. Saroj was there. If you ask her, she will remember the name of the book, and it was translated by Dr. Aparna Basu's niece.
Her sister or her niece?
The Gujarati lady worked with Mridula Sarabhai. Mridula Sarabhai was the one who was in charge of these operations. That is a book that we could take up as a book discussion.
Yes. Discussion. Very interesting and very stupid decision by the government that after 4 years, 5 years, Indian women should be brought to India and Pakistan women should be sent back. Most of the women, they had already settled, married the Muslims or the Hindus. They had children also. And there are so many plays also they have shown at Kamani Auditorium based on those stories.
It is something that we never knew that happened because especially in Kerala, we were not aware of such an operation taking place. And it was only when I read that book, I realized. And in fact, we wanted to have a separate session just on partition literature. Jamila and me, we were discussing that. And there is a young lady, Chanchal Malhotra. I don't know if you know. She is working extensively on partition literature. Not partition literature. Actually, she is trying to trace people who were affected by partition, who are all, of course, very, very old now. She's interviewing them and putting their experiences into books. She was here in Trivandrum for the Mathrubhumi Literature Festival last year. I listened to her and we were trying to get her for one of the webinars, but she unfortunately is very, very busy and she has not been able to give us a time. But if we manage to do that, I think probably, Jamila, we can have a session just exclusively on partition literature.
Yes, we have heard the stories from the relatives and the true stories. Because the relatives, they have faced partition. No? So
Actually,
straight from the
Sahitya Academy has started a project now. We have always seen only the English books that have talked about the partition. But there was a lot of literature that was written in the regional languages, Punjabi, Gujarati, and all, and now that is being translated now. And I think
Amrita Pritam wrote lovely poems, based on that experience, and very touching and emotional also.
Yeah, very touching.
So yes, we can have independent. You told me about Chanchal, no? I remember that, Usha.
So we'll try to do that. We'll put it in our list and we'll try to see how we can bring in that.
Yeah, we must have that. No?
Thank you. Thank you
so much. Thanks.
Okay, there are no more.
Thank you all. Wonderful evening we had today.
Vasanti, thank you for joining. She's from Chennai and she's also a regular at our webinars. Thank you, Vasanti, for joining.
Thank you, Shaji. Thank you. Thank you. Really, I'm warmed by this program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if there are no more comments, questions, once again, a big thank you to Chitra, and I would now request Usha to close the session.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for I'm actually, I must thank you for giving me a space. Thank you so much.
And we look forward to see you again at the next webinar.
Sure, ma'am.
We'll be having it on the first Saturday of next month. And then we'll see whether we'll continue with G20 without break, because we have now covered 9 countries, including India. So next month also we are covering India, which means we are left with 11 more countries. But out of which the European Union would be a huge thing. We have covered some of the countries. So we'll see how
we took Greece. We took Greece and Turkey.
Probably sequel of this we'll finish, then we can go to other, I think.
Yeah, that is what we'll try to do.
Yeah.
So we'll let you know what we propose, because next month anyway, we know we'll be having Chitra again to tell us about Indian literature. And then for the following months, we'll decide how we should go about it. I thank all of you, all the members and non-members who have joined and made this a really memorable presentation. Chitra did an excellent job, as all of you have mentioned. The work that she has put in for preparing this presentation and for the next presentation as well. Thank you, Chitra. Thank you for being part of this, and we really enjoyed your presentation. We also had non-members from various parts of the country joining, which is always a pleasure, because the intention of having these webinars is to attract more and more people into AIWC. So the non-members who have joined our webinar, I hope you will approach the nearest branch and become members. We look forward to having all of you as part of the AIWC family. So before the next webinar, we'll be having our annual conference in Trivandrum, where we hope to meet many of these our friends from other states. And our next webinar will follow that, because our conference in Trivandrum is from 31st of January to 2nd of February, 3 days. And after that, we'll be coming together again for the next webinar. So once again, I thank all of you for attending. And special thanks, Jamila and Bhuvaneshwari, and for the tremendous effort that you all have been taking in keeping this going, because it wouldn't have progressed this far. 3 years. We have completed 3 years. This is the 36th session that we are having under the Literary and Cultural Forum, which I think is quite commendable. We can congratulate ourselves, I think, Jamila and Bhuvaneshwari, Kamini, all of you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And special thanks, Kuljit, for joining. It's nice to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.